Namaste and welcome to Live, Love, Engage. I am Gloria Grace Rand, and today we are going to be talking about, I think, a little bit about love and loss and business and all sorts of things, actually, I think. And I think it's going to be an interesting conversation. I'm delighted to have a guest on the program today. Her name is Cynthia Mitchell. And so, first off, welcome to Live, Love, Engage, Cynthia.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to have you. We connected through. I'm not even sure now. I try to remember. I think it was a publicity summit or something.
National
Uh,
Publicity Summit.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and which was a really interesting experience. I got to be pitched
Yeah.
by lots of folks to be
We
on
got
the
to do
podcast.
that pitching.
Yeah, exactly. So, which was kind of cool. So,
Yeah.
and Cynthia was one of the people that we connected. And so, let me tell you a little bit about her and why I thought her story would be really great for this program. So, she was a hairdresser and a business owner who actually gifted her successful company to an employee in 2016. And she's also an author. She's written two books, When You Think About It and The Day My World Stopped. And I know that that second book, I believe, is about what happened to her in 2006 when she lost her only child, Breana. And yeah, in an instant, her life stopped and all of her goals changed. And I know um, I don't have personal experience with that directly. However, my mother lost her son. Um, my brother died when he was 33, and I know how that affected her. So I can only imagine how it affected you, Cynthia. And but one thing it did for her was that she became obsessed with finding proof of eternal life. And she's even had the good fortune to be interviewed by none other than Jack Canfield, the author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. And he actually referred to her as a scout because she ventured into territories most don't explore. And now she actually composes little nuggets of thought and posts them daily on her Facebook page, which is called Eternity Scout Cynthia Mitchell. And I'll make sure I have a link to that in the show notes later. Um, but essentially, her mission is to eliminate the unknowns and fears surrounding death to allow the light to shine again. And that is a wonderful, wonderful mission to have in life. And I'm really glad that you're here to talk about all those things. So I think I'm not sure where we should start exactly, but maybe let's start with the businessy stuff first, and then maybe delve into the other. So how and why did you wind up actually gifting your company away? Because that's
Well,
unusual. Most
yeah,
people don't do that.
yeah. So my accountant told me, but um, it was, everything changes when you lose the most important person in your life. She was my life,
Hmm.
and everything about me changed. All my priorities, all my goals, and I lost her in 2006, but I continued running the business for another 10 years, but that was because of the amazing people that worked for me. And they held me up. They took care of me during those really dark hours of my life and the transformation. But as my mission, as it expanded and I wanted to start bringing this message out to people and helping other people not feel that same devastation I felt,
Mhm.
um, it became more and more time consuming. And I'd always felt that any decision I made in business and in life, really, that everybody had to win. It couldn't just be a one-sided decision. And I could tell that I was neglecting my business because of where my mission was.
Right.
So I held a meeting and talked with everybody about it. And I chose one with their help to turn the business over to.
Mm.
And I knew I was putting a business into the hands of someone who had not, I mean, I grew into it. I had 17 people at the time. And and she would be taking on a pretty big responsibility. So I did hang in there for another 4 years.
Mm.
I just worked 2 days a week. I was an employee, which is
That
which
was
was an
different.
interesting thing.
Yeah,
And
yeah, sure, after being the boss and now being the
yes,
employee.
and she's done a wonderful job. And now I have fully retired and am completely involved with helping to get this message out. And have written 2 books, yes, as you said. And
Mhm.
I wrote the first one probably within, it took a long time to do the research I did, but probably within, I wrote it in 2015.
Mm.
So it gave me, I mean, I was studying things like quantum world and energy and consciousness. And, from a hairdresser, that takes a little bit of work. So anyway, that's kind of where I did. And then the day my world stopped, of course, is
Mm.
um, it just more in depth. People wanted more, which was
Right.
interesting. They wanted a more in-depth explanation, for instance, of energy in the quantum world, consciousness, all of those things. So
Mm. Well,
that's
what so how did you get down that road? What was sort of the first step, I guess, maybe that kind of led you into starting to explore those subjects? Because it's definitely not the usual um, experience of someone who has gone through loss.
no, it was an interesting thing because I didn't, when I lost Brie, I wasn't sure if there was a God. I certainly lost faith in religion and in the Bible. So I knew that I wasn't going to get any comfort there. But in desperation, I sort of raised my hands in the air and said, "Where is my Breana? Where is she?" And, the next day I awoke with this urge to drive up to our cabin. Bree and I had a cabin together. And it was our place. And I did never wanted to go there without her again.
Mm.
And here this urge was, and it would not go away. And so I finally got in my car and went up there, opened the door, and of course she wasn't there like I foolishly hoped she might be,
Eh, you know.
but she wasn't. So I walked through and I knew we had books. I started looking around at the books and I happened to notice a book I'd never seen before, written by a medium. It
Mhm.
had 2 markers in it, one under loss, one under children. And
Mm.
they were Brianna's, the kind she would always use, little sticky notes.
Mhm.
And I knew that was where I was supposed to start. I knew that was the book I was supposed to find. And
Mhm.
not knowing much about them, I began reading
Mm.
about them, their death experiences, and past life stories, and anybody that had anything to say about that.
Mm. That's
And
amazing.
that's
Um, it's so interesting because I experienced something similar in a way, because when my sister passed away at the end of 2016, and she lived out in Arizona, and she had a lovely book collection, a lot of different varieties of books. And so I went through and just picked some out that I thought would be interesting to read later on, and just packed them up, took them back home with me. And let's see, it was probably about a couple months later, I decided to just look through my bookcase and just kind of take a look at and see what the heck did I even bring home. And one of them was a book called Grieving Mindfully. And I was like, yeah, thank you, Michaela. That's interesting. Yes, because I was really struggling with grief at that moment. And that was one of the books among many that she, that I took, that have really been interesting for me. I mean, a lot of them, some were Deepak Chopra books, and just
yeah,
Eckhart Tolle, and just a lot of different things that I've been working my way through. And but it is interesting how I definitely do think that we're connected and there's energy. Um, it doesn't, it just takes different forms. Um, so tell me a little bit about, I guess maybe what prompted you then to actually start writing about your
yeah, not being a
experiences.
writer, that's an interesting
Yeah.
question because I mean, I knew what I wanted to do with my life, and that was be a hairdresser.
Okay.
But um, but losing Bree, as I said, changed everything. And when I discovered the things that I did and the fears that I had, I were leaving me with each page that I turned, in those books. And I felt I just had to tell people. I mean, I had so many people at that time that would come to me and say, I lost my son, or
Mm-hmm.
my sister lost her daughter, you know, those kinds of things. And I thought so many people could use this information,
Mm-hmm.
which is, and then of course, my grandson, he didn't know his mom. He'd never met her. He was only 6 months old when she
Oh,
left.
oh wow.
And I wanted him to know her.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's how the first book got started. I could talk a little bit about her and also give him the comfort one day when he was old enough that he would see his mom again and be with her and know her.
Right.
So that's what prompted that first book.
Mm.
Yeah. I never wanted it to be about grief or sadness. So
Right.
it was basically an introduction into the quantum world and who
Mm.
we are, who
Mm.
we really are,
So,
what we are.
so what have you found, especially because I've done some reading a little bit myself, but I'd love to know from your perspective, what have you learned and what is it important for us to know?
Um, well, I think the first thing that happened to me while I was reading, with that first aha moment that you might
Hmm.
say,
Yeah.
is, I remembered in school we'd learned, we're made of atoms.
Hmm.
But when I began to realize and understand that atoms are made of energy, I knew that we were actually made of energy.
Right.
And and so the law of conservation of energy clearly states that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change form. And I knew from that moment that Brianna's energy was still there,
Mm-hmm.
that she was still there. So, and just in a different form.
Right.
And that's kind of was my first aha moment. But of course, every aha moment I had throughout this journey led me to more questions,
Of course.
and so
Yeah.
what about her consciousness? I mean, the
Right.
energy is there, but is she there, the essence of who my daughter was?
Right.
And so that led me into kind of studying consciousness, where I think that might come from.
Mm. Um, so that's raising questions in me. So what have you found?
Yeah,
So
so
what
what
have
about
you found about
consciousness?
that? Yeah.
Well, everything you read is nobody knows,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's everywhere. It isn't every, is it non-local? Is it in the brain or is it
Yeah.
just out there? And of course, I began to study the power of thought because I knew that thoughts can affect the energy around us. We can create with our thoughts, and we know that's true. And
Right.
thoughts, of course, that's consciousness.
Yeah.
So I began thinking consciousness and energy need each other. They're a part of one another. Energy basically just kind of vibrates out there without direction of some
Mm.
kind. Consciousness is that direction.
Mm.
So they are hand in hand or an integral part of each other, which led me to then believe and know, that Brianna and her consciousness walked hand in hand into that other realm.
Mm.
We cannot exist without it except, in just a state of energy. And we're more than that.
Mm. So, do you think that there is a way for us to be able to then contact that energy, to be able to tap into that consciousness now when someone is gone?
Oh, yes. And, there's many accounts of people having been able to do that. And as I said, I didn't know much about mediums, but, and I really don't, it's not like I rely on mediums for anything, but
Yeah.
I, I, I so appreciate the work that these loving people do in trying to bring our loved ones forward to us.
Hmm.
And we all have that ability, but of course it's atrophied over the years. So I visited, I've been to a medium, I think 3 times now. And of course, Brianna's always had some interesting things to say to me. And the interesting thing about this is that their personality comes through. And
Mm.
Brianna had kind of a sarcastic way of talking to
Yeah.
me, like daughter, mother, and oh, mom.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, she said one of the first things that I that she said to me is, "Mom, you're reading too much."
Mm.
And I said, "No, I'm not." And the medium goes, "Oh no, she says you are." And of course I was devouring books. I mean,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
reading 3 at a time. I mean, I was ignoring everybody around me and
Mm.
everything around me. I was just consumed with reading. I knew what she was, I knew she was right, and I knew what she meant, that I needed to stop. I needed to pay attention to everybody else who missed her and cared about her and cared about me, because they were also concerned about this person they used to know who's now
Right.
buried in a book. That was a really interesting connection. And then I asked, why she came,
Yeah.
and she said that the medium, through the medium, she said,
Hmm.
she came to teach you unconditional love. And
Hmm.
I thought, wow, what could that mean? I love everybody.
Hmm.
Maybe that's just a can dancer and they tell that to everybody.
Yeah.
But I began to investigate unconditional love, and that opened up a whole other arena. I knew that that's what she wanted me to learn about,
Mm.
unconditional love. So it was, yes, I know we talked. I know that I knew it was her by some of the remarks that she
Right.
made. In fact, the medium even started laughing and said, wow, I really like her. She's just kind of right out there, huh? Yeah, she was.
Very cool.
It is.
Yeah, it's this it's interesting, and I think part of what I'm even finding fascinating is in doing this podcast has just been opening my eyes as well, just to meet lots of different people. I've had mediums on the program before as well. And it's there's so much we don't know, and yet so much we do know. And I think a lot of it is really intuitively we do know. We
Yeah,
know it in our hearts. We're just conditioned, and the culture, it's like, oh, it's all woo woo stuff.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
love. It really comes down to it being love. And I like how you said
Yeah.
that. So um is there going to be a third book, do you think? Is that where you're headed
I
now? What do you
actually,
think?
well, I have a couple things in mind. I've actually been thinking of writing a book about fear and love.
Mm,
Elizabeth Kubler-Ross said there are only two emotions in the world, fear and love, and
mm,
every feeling and emotion that we have comes from
mm,
those two major
right.
emotions. So
Yeah.
I've been thinking about writing a book about that, which have a real interest in, because I know there's some controversy there, and that's kind of fun for me.
Yeah.
Anyway, that, and then also the little nuggets of thought. People have been really enjoying those, so I thought about doing my coffee table book of a few of those. I've got like, I don't know, 400 of them. I've got a lot. I won't do a 400-page book, but but I'll pick a few, So
Yeah.
I've been thinking about doing that. So um, yeah, I mean, once you start, you can't stop, and I just want this message to get out. I just want everybody to know that we are equally and eternally and unconditionally loved.
Mm,
That it's beyond anything that our humans are really capable of understanding, I think, until you really investigate the meaning of unconditional love.
mm.
So yeah, I can't stop. I will never stop, I'll probably be in my deathbed still preaching.
Well, that's
No,
good. It's a good thing.
yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah. So what is your definition of unconditional love?
I believe unconditional love has no conditions.
Okay.
And when I first thought about it, I thought I loved Breana unconditionally. She was my daughter. I loved her unconditionally. There's nothing she could do that would make me not love her.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is, I did have, I did expect things from her.
Mm.
I expected, I, I expected, well, I didn't expect good grades from her because she expected that of herself.
Yeah.
But I did expect her to kind of follow certain parameters and rules and things like that, and that parents naturally do.
Yeah.
You try to teach them all the right moves,
Right.
you might say. So we have expectations. Unconditional love has no expectations. I mean, absolutely not. They expect nothing from you. How strange. How strange for a human to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So there's only one kind of love that can do that. And that's a love that's above our love, that loves all of us
Mm.
unconditionally. So
Yeah.
yeah, unconditional love. it's why I know everyone goes to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
It can't do anything else. Unconditional love couldn't do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone goes to heaven, even our pets.
Yeah.
And I know that's also hard for people to accept. That might be in my other book too.
Yes,
So
definitely. Yeah.
are we on
Yeah.
pause?
No, I think you're probably just a slightly unstable internet connection, but I can still hear you. So that's the important thing. And I'm sure it'll catch up in a minute. Um, one thing I was looking at your website and you did mention something about, and we're back from that little technical outage. My internet decided to go on the fritz. So there was a little pause there. That's what that was. So I apologize for that. I was going to ask you before the internet dropped and rudely interrupted us. I noticed on your website that you had something mentioned about heaven and hell, and that
Oh.
you don't believe in hell. So I wanted to see if you could expand on that a little bit.
Um, and just a little bit of what you said. You saw my internet about
Yeah, yeah. On your
hell.
website, it says
Oh,
something about heaven and hell, and so I
oh,
wanted to get, yeah, what your feelings were about the concept of
I
hell.
know.
'Cause I grew up
Well,
Catholic, and, you're all going to go to hell.
yeah, I know. Well, I studied other religion. Not every religion believes there is a hell. And so I researched, well, what is their, equivalent to that or whatever. But I also at the same time thought I should investigate the origin of hell. When did that first appear in the Bible? And of course, it appeared as the name Sheol. It was called Sheol, which was a place for the dead.
Mm,
There was no judgment there. It was just everybody went there, good, bad, everybody.
mm,
And then, the Bible was translated several times because the
right.
Hebrew language had only 22 consonants and no vowels. And that, well, when the Greek came up with their vocabulary, it had vowels.
Hmm.
And so they then transcribed it into Greek.
Hmm.
And the Greek changed the word Sheol to Hades. Well, Hades was the god of their underworld. So
Right.
now Sheol became kind of a dark place for bad people, for evil people. And and this is I have no facts to back this up. But I began to think about that. Well, why did it become a place of eternal torture? How did this place become a place of eternal torture? And I
Hmm.
realized that um, the Christian people were crucified. They were horribly treated when Christ first died,
Hmm.
and they had been promised a rapture to remove them from all of this, and that didn't happen.
Right.
So could they have then been told, well, they'll get theirs in the end. Don't worry, they'll get theirs in the end. Because I mean, this had been going on. This persecution had been going on for 100 years or more.
Right.
Wasn't like it was just a few years.
Hmm.
So they had lost their loved ones, all of this. So I just wondered, is that where it became this place of eternal torture? Because it had to be really that bad to give them any kind of peace, you'd think.
Hmm.
Because we do believe in revenge, humans. We have a
Yes.
tendency to want our revenge.
Right.
And but I mean, God doesn't. That's the difference. There's
Hmm.
unconditional love has no reason. I mean, there's nothing there. But anyway, I began to doubt the very existence of hell.
Hmm.
And in other religions, they, it's a little different. So you might pass through there,
Hmm.
but you don't stay there.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's why I don't believe in hell, and it's why I believe there's only one place, and that is
Mm.
heaven.
Yeah.
And of course, our energy levels are different, so that
Right.
makes us in different energetic levels
Hmm.
over there. But I mean, we're all there. There's
Yeah.
no place of eternal torture. How could that happen? That would be such a sadistic thing to do
Hmm.
because we will make mistakes, and we do not know. I always think of the movie The Shack, and he wrote such a beautiful book about forgiveness and the very fact that we really don't know um, a person's other life. We can't know it unless we walked in their shoes.
Mm,
So, yeah, I don't believe in hell. I only believe there's only one place we go,
mm.
and that's a place where, and of course I can't tell you how many near death and all of those kinds of stories. I mean, I read so many, I felt like I had one myself. And so and it's just a loving place.
Mhm.
People feel completely connected. That was another aha moment I had in the very early on was
Yeah.
our interconnection. People don't realize how one we really are,
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, please.
and that I mean, if people understood that, I think all this horribleness would stop,
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
well, all the evil would go away.
Yeah, for
Let's just
sure.
say, wouldn't that be beautiful?
That
How
would.
understanding
Absolutely.
our connection.
For sure. I
Yeah.
agree. Well, if someone wants to learn more about you, what is the best place for someone to connect with you if they want to, find out about your books and just really, see what you're all about a little bit more?
Well, my website, www.cynthiamitchell.com. Um, I posted a few nuggets on there also so
Mhm.
they get an idea of what those are. And then also I've got several blogs on there, several stories they can read. And then the books are there too. So a little bit about me, typical website. Yeah.
Excellent.
And I suppose that would be the best thing. They can sign up for my newsletter there and connect with me that way or through my email. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Well, I really appreciate you being on the program today and sharing with us your story and what you've been able to find out. And I think it is a message of hope. And to know that we're not alone and we don't have to be alone when our loved ones um, change form. Let's call it that. They're just changing form. It's just, we can't necessarily maybe see them physically with our eyes, but it doesn't mean they're not still there. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And watch for the signs. And
Mm,
like you said, look at was it a coincidence that all
mm,
those books were there for you,
yeah. Yeah.
or that I found them? That we are being guided and helped
Hmm.
if we just pay attention.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. Yeah. Pay
Yeah.
attention to the signs. All right. Well, thank you again for being with us. And thank you, everyone, for listening and for watching and I appreciate your patience with the little internet bubbles we're having today. And until next time, as always, I encourage you to live fully, love deeply, and engage authentically.
Yay. Absolutely.